This Fleet Equipment Unscripted interview is presented by Hendrickson, a leading manufacturer of heavy-duty suspension systems and components to the global commercial transportation industry. Visit hendrickson-intl.com to learn more.
Hey everyone, Jason Morgan, Content Director for Fleet Equipment. Welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted. Have another really great conversation coming out of Hino Trucks National Parts Conference. If you missed the last one, a quick backstory. I was invited out to do live podcasts at Hino Trucks event for their dealers and suppliers here earlier this spring. They were nice enough to share some of these conversations, so I've been sharing them here with you all, and this one's a really good one. I'm talking with AP Emissions about all things after treatment. So I know after treatment can cause some service headaches, at least some of the older systems. DPFs, regens, upstream issues. Those are all talking points here that we have in this interview. Wanted to share that here. I'll link to some of the previous interviews that I did at the conference also in the show notes here below. But take a listen to this great conversation with AP Emissions, and I will see you next time. Start us off, just kind of introduce yourself, please. Tell us who you are, what you do here, and what makes you famous in the industry.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm not so sure as much as famous, but my name is Leonard Oshman, Director of Business Development for AP Emissions for the Durafit heavy-duty line. So, been in the industry, a little north of 25 years. Seen a lot of things come and go. So, emissions is a big part of the industry nowadays.
Yeah. Continuing and I know it's one that fleets always pay really close attention to. And I know that we've worked on content before too in terms of best practices. And that's kind of what I want to get into a little bit of that here, right? So in terms of DPF maintenance, DOC maintenance, what are some of those options and risk assessments you're looking at? What are some of the maintenance best practices there that they want to be taking a close look at to avoid those headaches?
Right. Well, there are a number of approaches, and I think that a fleet may take a cost, in the very beginning, a cost approach, and all I want to talk about is cost, or a fleet may want to take a complete cost analysis, total cost of maintenance for the emission control system. So within that emission control system with the DPF DOCs, my opinion, and everyone's has one, right? But our opinion is look at the total cost.
Right.
So you basically have four options in that fleet maintenance cost of DPF and DOCs, emission controls. You basically have a cleaning. You could internally clean, have an internal cleaning process. And external, you could outsource it. You could use a remand or a recon program, which those today, several of the OEs have abandoned those programs. Or you can go with a new, whether the fleet is looking at an aftermarket new or an OE new.
Right.
So ours, the Durafit brand, is an aftermarket new. It's completely vertically integrated. All of our own catalyst formulations, all of our own wash coating, every bit of those processes are all done in one building.
Right.
So we control that from start to finish. But if the truck's not working, and it's not working as long as it needs to work, you're out of business.
Right.
So I think when you look at that cost assessment, keeping those all in mind, not necessarily the lowest cost is going to be the very best option for that fleet.
Right. So. Right. No, and I mean, I think I would share the same opinion, right? Because yes, the after treatment systems it's not something fun for the fleets to deal with. But to your point, the cost of the component really pales in comparison to that truck being down for. I mean, we know what dwell times are up these days. We're talking 10 days, 11 days, up in the 2 weeks sometimes when I'm talking with fleets about how long trucks are sitting around, depending on, and not on after treatment per se, but just on downtime, right? Shops are backed up. We know there's supply chain issues. So looking at that holistic, taking that holistic view and making sure that you're getting the best product. And yeah, I'll pay a little more up front if it saves me on the back end of a truck going down. In that regard then, like what are the common reasons for DPF failure? I mean, is there anything that the fleet can do, or maybe even the dealers here can look at to try to help their customers along so that they can do some of those best practices before they get to a failure mode?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, it's very simple for the fleet to blame the DPF, right? I mean, isn't that, the DPF failed?
Yeah.
What happens is it's typically of an upstream issue, whether it's a fuel injector that had some issues, whether it's a leaking oil leak, or whether a coolant leak or whatever it is makes its way downstream. And when it makes its way downstream, it contaminates the emission control system. So you get a lot of things. You get into rough idling. You get a lot of, foul running. And the emission control system loses that ability or that capability to build its heat load so that it stays in good regen as long as it can without having to go into active. Once it gets into active, that's referred to as the fuel penalty, right? So now it's costing the fleet much longer. So things that can go wrong, well, fuel injectors. I mean, you could have, again, leaking systems. You can, very rarely is it a turbocharger, which, they're good. They're built very well. So not as often as a turbocharger. But I think a lot of them will have to do with contamination.
Right. Well, and that's one of the things, even working on content for fleet equipment, one of the things we've been harping on a little bit is that a lot of times the answer in the shop is, I'll run a regen. I'll run the regen. And then it's like, okay, but to your point, the problem wasn't the regen. That was kind of the symptom. You have to go figure out what the actual problem was, and oftentimes it is upstream and taking that kind of holistic view of the maintenance process, not just having the tech run a regen and okay, the truck can go back and then it's back a couple days later. Like that doesn't help anyone, right?
Exactly.
And then you get blamed for it because it's like, well, these DPFs. It's like, no, guys, you gotta look at it holistically.
Right.
So you mentioned the aftermarket, and there are a number of different options in terms of the DPF and where fleets can go. Can you give us some of the differences in maybe what fleets should look for in a DPF product that makes it stand out and indicates, okay, this is, I want to pay a little bit more for this up front to save me on the service side on the back end?
Well, I think so. Everyone likes the first fit alternative or the first fit mindset, if you will. If it's a first fit, it's going to work better than anything that there is. It's not always necessarily true, but it is a good approach. Look for the best thing that you can get with first fit. For an example, with Durafit, the thing that we take very serious is the substrate. We use an OEM grade substrate because that is a first fit flow. Okay,
Nice.
So once you kind of get outside of that parameter, it compromises the flow to some degree. I'm not an expert in that area, but it will compromise it. So we always approach it from our point of view is let's start with the heart of the DPF, DOC itself, and let's really dial down into the substrate itself. And then the next thing would be catalyst and catalyst formulation, because that's going to be the juice or the sauce, if you will. That's going to be, the leading thing for performance in regen. So we develop our own catalyst. We utilize our own catalyst, and then the wash coating process. So.
Right. Well, and even then, those are good talk points for dealers to understand, for fleets to understand, insofar as those are the kind of things that I can ask about, as I'm kind of shopping around and talking to people to see just kind of how that shakes out, The catalyst, do you have your own catalyst? Is that important? What do you look for? What are the special properties that go into that? Very cool. Very cool. Anything else any standout things you're showing here at the show, at the booth? Anything that dealers should stop by and talk about?
Well, for Durafit, we've introduced some new products. So we've got a couple new products that we've put into the portfolio that'll soon be launched through the entire Hino program.
Okay, cool.
Hino has been a very strong supporter of our program, and I think it's a very good relationship. I think the training never stops in terms of the knowledge prospect. We just recently released 4 videos that we're really proud of that, will be and are available to the Hino sales group so that they can get a better understanding of the product knowledge. We were talking about some of the faults that could take place within the system.
Yeah.
We just completed that as well. So some things that I think would help them when talking to their fleet customer, why they are selecting the products that they're selecting to sell to their customers. So,
right, or even get an idea of what those faults may be, and if you hear those come up with a customer, or if they're belly aching it, because they do. When I've walked into a fleet operation or a fleet shop and there's after treatment stuff going on, they'll tell you about it. So staying listening for those keywords, having that training, always great.
Right.
I appreciate you taking the time. This is wonderful. Enjoy the show. Thanks for coming out.
Well, thank you very much, Jason, and we appreciate it. And again, we're very thankful for Hino's support.